Running is the best test of athleticism and endurance, and the peak of this is the marathon, a 44-kilometer feat that only the most elite runners can complete. But, as a human, we try to push our bodies to the maximum potential. This is how the sub-2-hour marathon challenge was born. Many companies have backed the idea of perfecting running and won't stop until this is achieved. So, in this video, we'll break down the most prominent variables that dictate a runner's attributes and how we can make the most out of these variables for our benefit. A large part of running pertains to cellular respiration. So, to quickly summarize our knowledge of this, we'll look into the four main parts. First is glycolysis. This is basically a few enzyme-derived reactions that take glucose molecules from the bloodstream and break it down in the cytoplasm to create two pyruvate molecules to use in the mitochondria. Second is pyruvate oxidation. After we've broken down our glucose molecule into two pyruvate molecules, then we add a coenzyme A, remove a CO2, and charge an NADH. This all occurs as it passes into the mitochondria through a transport protein. Next, we have the Krebs cycle. This is a constant loop that bonds pyruvate and acetyl-CoA to create a citric acid molecule. This citric acid is then broken back down into acetyl-CoA, and along the way charges 3 NADH and 1 FADH2. The last part of cellular respiration is the electron transport chain. This uses all of the NADH and FADH2 we've charged to create ATP for the body to use. There are 3 different complexes where NADH and FADH2 drop off their electrons. Doing this pushes an H+ ion through into the intermembrane space, which occurs for all 3 complexes. After this, ATP synthase brings the H+ ions back through the inner membrane and charges ADP to create a new ATP. So let's look into the variables, the ways to perfect the body's efficiency. We'll look into 2 of the main ways in relation to cellular respiration to do this. First is VO2 max. This is the relation between the amount of O2 your body can intake and exerting your body to its maximum potential. This can be trained by hitting your VO2 max more often. In relation to cellular respiration, the VO2 max is when anaerobic respiration starts to occur. This means your body begins to produce a lot of lactate, which keeps you from going any further than your VO2 maximum. Most high-performance athletes use about 85% of their lung capacity, while the average person uses about 60%. Another large factor that comes into play is bringing that oxygen that you're taking in to your muscles. This is where blood cells come into play. Blood doping can occur in 2 ways, legally or illegally. Blood doping in general means the amount of red blood cells you have to pick up oxygen at the lungs, as well as how effective your hemoglobin is at holding on to that oxygen. To naturally blood dope, a common way for athletes to do this is to train at very high altitudes. This means there's less oxygen in the air, making it harder for an athlete to function as well as they would. So, the body responds to this by creating more red blood cells. This means the athlete gets more O2 intake since the red blood cells can take advantage of it. This then makes it easier for the athlete when he or she goes back into a regular altitude and now has better O2 levels in the air, as well as more red blood cells, giving them a greater advantage. The illegal way of doing this is injecting the hormone erythropoietin, which is the same your body would produce naturally. The problem with doing this is since it's not occurring naturally, the blood can become very thick. This raises the blood pressure, and if the athlete continues to inject themselves, they can die or have major circulatory problems. The last thing we'll touch on today is Nike's push for the so-called impossible 2-hour marathon. Over the last few months, Nike's released new special edition clothing and shoes to promote the idea of pushing the human body. They also have a few athletes that they are very confident in to break this record. The last time Nike ran the marathon, one of the runners came 25 seconds short of the 2 hours. Now, this makes this impossible goal seem realistic, but many are skeptical that it's not a real marathon since it's in perfect conditions with no bumps or hills. and the athletes are fed and given whatever they need during the race. Either way, it's still an amazing attempt, and Nike has no signs of stopping. So, is it possible to run a sub 2 hour marathon? Well, I believe it can be done in the conditions Nike is setting up for their athletes. With the proper training of VO2 max and the most red blood cells the body can naturally have, it can be done. But in a real marathon with non-perfect conditions and without a team giving the athlete anything they may need, no, I don't think it's possible in that scenario. But looking through countless studies and articles, many scientists hypothesize we never come even close to a sub 2 hour marathon. But it seems the human body can never stop impressing us.